The best salespeople keep records. They leverage technology and make sure that every little piece of data that they collect is entered into a software or on a 5x7 card. Mic check. Welcome to Yo Bradley TV. Love the question. Give me 5 tips to become the best salesperson. That's an interesting question. Now, I would have to say tip number 1 would be study the competition. See, there's a lot of salespeople out there masquerading as salespeople. They don't necessarily know the market very well. They're not an expert in the industry. They're new. They failed to study the competition. They failed to understand the landscape of the industry, and they're not necessarily as helpful as a best salesperson would be. So the tip is study the competition. 9 times out of 10, when someone's going to be leaving your environment, it's going to be because they didn't get enough information to make a decision, or they have other things to go look at. They have other things to consider. What if you were an expert in the field? What if you already studied all of the competitors? What if you knew more about the competitors than the competitors? Why would the customer need to leave to go talk to another salesperson if you're already an expert on that particular model or that particular competitor's product? So tip number 1 would be study the competition. Really become an expert in your field. You want to be the go-to person. You want to give them a certainty that, man, this individual knows what they're talking about. And in order to do that, you study the competition. Too many salespeople study their own product, their own service, but they fail to study the competition. So tip number 1, study the competition. Get to be an expert in your field in all areas, not just your own, not just the company you work for, not just the product you sell or service that you offer, but competitors as well. Number 2, I would say you want to learn to ask the right questions. I can tell you, value is delivered and gross is made by making sure that you have the right information to build value in your product or service. In order to build value in your product or service, you need to ask great questions so the customer will give you great answers. So learning the right questions to ask would be tip number 2, because if you get that information, it's much easier for you to build the value of your product or service beyond the value of their money. And it allows you to build rapport, get to know the individual, see if there's common ground. It's just to have a great introduction will determine how open they are, which will determine what questions you can ask and how you can ask them. But learning to ask the right questions is imperative for any salesperson that wants to take the profession seriously, because after all, the way you get someone to buy something from you is to build value for your product or service. How do you build value? You can make some assumptions. You can talk about what's exciting to you. You can talk about what's exciting to the world. You can talk about what the magazines are saying. Or, and here's what the best salespeople do, they find out from the customer what excites them, what problems it's solving for them, what it's replacing. They're getting the information from the customer so they can directly relate the benefits and advantages of the product or service to the customer specifically, not in general. And then they build that value much easier because they learn to ask the right questions. Number 3, outwork everyone, okay? Most people don't really want to work very hard, which is why they get into sales. It's fairly easy money. All you have to do is write up some orders, help some people, smile, and 9 times out of 10, you're making decent money. So naturally, I think salespeople are a little bit lazy. That's why they're in sales. So if you want to be the best, forget being lazy, forget waiting on showroom traffic, forget waiting on walk-ins. Start to learn how to prospect. Start to learn how to hunt for the deal. Don't wait for customers to come to you. Don't rely on the company advertising to feed you or give you opportunities. Learn to prospect and hunt and outwork every single person that you're working with. You want to make sure that nobody outworks you. The more hands you shake, the more money you make. If you're scheduled from 8 to 5, work from 8 to 8 minimum. Okay, outwork everyone. That goes without saying. Most people in the sales industry tend to get into a habit of just filling up their pipeline. They don't go too much. They start to go by the internal gauge of comfort, and they tend to slow down. So if you want to be one of the best salespeople on earth, then you gotta have good work ethic. You have to do more than expected. You have to literally outwork everyone else if you want to be the best. Number 4, I want you to be solution oriented. I want you to be a problem solver. I mean, if you think about it, when it boils down to it, what is a salesperson? What does a salesperson do? If they're doing it right, they're helping people solve problems. They're presenting solutions to people. So if that's the case, why not become solution oriented? Now, how do you become solution oriented? You start to look on the bright side of things. You start to remain positive every single day. You realize that there is a solution to every situation and focus on the solution, not the problem. With that positive mental attitude, that optimistic outlook, and that certainty that there is a solution, that is being solution oriented, you start to become a much more trusted individual. Naturally, you come across more trustworthy. And when it boils down to it, the ability to establish trust immediately is vitally important. So if you become solution oriented, it just kind of tends to train your mind to start looking for solutions rather than problems, and that in and of itself will take you far. The last thing I'd tell you for the 5 tips, even though I could give you 500 tips, at least for this video, is keep records. The best salespeople keep records. They leverage technology and make sure that every little piece of data that they collect is entered into a software or on a 5x7 card. Their birthdays, their anniversaries, their kids' names, their favorite sports teams. You have to keep records, because as you become a better and better salesperson, ultimately becoming one of the best, which is what you asked for, to be the best salespeople, you need to keep incredible records, because those records will be utilized to get referrals, do follow-up, create new deals down the road, and literally establish your career and reputation. So there's the 5 tips that I'm going to give you for right now. For more tips and information on how to sell, close, and persuade, just watch some more videos.